What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and today I want to speak about the state of modern video games and why they aren't as fun or captivating as they were in years past. What's happened to this beloved hobby of ours? Well, the answer is pretty long, so let's begin. Recently I was playing Gotham Knights, and the game starts off with this great opening sequence of Batman fighting my favorite bad villain, Ra's al Ghul. The entire scene is bombastic, and it ultimately results in Batman dying with his sidekicks finding him in the aftermath. What starts off as promising, however, quickly devolves into modern gaming nonsense. With a massive open world that feels lifeless, that's littered with the same encounters as you fight criminals or save people over and over again. And honestly, within the first hour, you've basically seen what this game is going to be in its entirety. While this is nothing new, the added mechanic of having levels attached to each enemy means what should be a fast encounter turns into an RPG level scaling button mashing fest, with random criminals taking dozens of hits from specialized superheroes because the level above their head is higher than mine. Adding to this is skill trees with very boring unlocks, as well as an open world that feels more annoying to traverse than previous Batman games, and after a few hours, I found myself starting to doze off. It was in this moment that I began to realize that Gotham Knights kind of sucks. But when you look at the mechanics surrounding it, from the RPG framework, gear, and grinding encounters, really Gotham Knights is very much in sync with the vast majority of today's modern games. So many games these days have things like level grinds or forced microtransactions, or design philosophies that aim to keep you playing so you can live in their world, which always makes me cringe when I hear that phrase. Eventually, I deleted Gotham Knights for the time being and decided it was time to replay something else to see if I was crazy about the state of games today. So I downloaded the PS5 version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and my friends, they do not make games like this anymore. The Witcher 3 has aged like a fine wine, with incredible visuals and an open world that feels both realistic and dangerous. Sure, it has the RPG framework surrounding it, like levels on enemies and whatnot, but the difference is how vast and deep The Witcher's game design goes. Not to mention how much love and care was given to every single aspect of its experience. It's sad because we all know if a game like Witcher 3 existed today, half of its armor and weapons would be placed behind paywalls. Gwent cards would be sold in booster packs, and new hairstyles and Witcher contracts would be things you could only get if you paid with real money. But the more I played, the more I came to realize that The Witcher 3 is an anomaly. Not only is it a masterful game full of things to discover, but it has small details that games these days would never bother to even spend time implementing. Like, there's a scene where Geralt is being prepped to meet the Emperor of Nilfgaard, and as he's talking, he's being groomed by the barber. And the devs went as far as to make multiple in-game models of Geralt with varying levels of shaving cream on his face. And these are only used for brief moments in a single conversation, which is amazing, yet this small detail is something you just don't see in games anymore. Honestly, the more I continue to replay The Witcher, the more my eyes began to open to the hellscape that is today's modern games. And as I looked through many of the modern games today, from Gotham Knights to Call of Duty or even A Plague Tale Requiem, each of these games had one worrying thing in common. They all had cosmetics for sale, but no actual meaningful gameplay additions. No expansions or anything that actually adds real value to a gaming experience. The modern gaming landscape is currently in a deluge of cosmetic monetization. Every game feels as if they're constantly trying to nickel and dime you with in-game purchases while never offering any new or unique gameplay experiences. So how did we go from this to things like this? Well, that's what I want to explore and ask, when did gaming go from offering meaningful full experiences to becoming storefronts for monetization above everything else? Well, take my hand and let's go diving in the cesspool together. So where did this begin? Well, I could go to the very beginning, but I think I'd rather speak about when microtransactions and cosmetics really started to dig their claws into players' brains. One of these games was MapleStory, an online RPG which would have players opening loot boxes that would explode in public so that other players could see them as well. The reasoning for this was not really for the player who bought it, but as an advertisement for the players around them. If one player would buy something and get a rare item, it would only benefit the player. But by making the unwrapping of the loot box public, it allowed other players who may be on the fence with buying a microtransaction see the attractive allure of rewards and force them into buying some themselves. Then those players would open boxes in front of other players who would get incentivized to buy their own loot boxes, and you get the idea. This concept would be later used as well by games like Call of Duty World War II, which was a game set during one of the bloodiest wars in history, but Activision decided to make a Destiny-like hub area for players to mingle in, which felt out of character for the time period and the series overall, since anything you need in a Call of Duty game can easily be managed in a basic menu-like system. But this hub area only existed for one reason, and that was because the loot boxes in that game were like MapleStory. You open them, they explode, and then they shower you with stuff, and other players could see you doing that, and you know the rest. This push for microtransactions over actual meaningful expansions have only grown and mutated the gaming industry as time has passed. You even have yearly release games like FIFA, which has their own microtransaction system called Ultimate Team. This mechanic has players buying what can only be described as card packs with varying rarities and so on for them to use in game. The thing is that these rewards are stagnant and are only valid for that particular title. So once a new FIFA game inevitably releases the following year, all the money spent on the previous release is now pointless. Regardless, it was reported that EA Sports titles made over $1.77 billion in sales in 2022 alone. Also, that's not from the games themselves being sold, that's simply from microtransactions. To put that into perspective for you, Elden Ring, which was one of the biggest releases of 2022, has generated over $1 billion or more for From Software and Bandai Namco in 2022. It's also a massive RPG that has won more awards than any game in existence. It even beat The Last of Us Part 2 recently for the top spot as most awarded game of all time. It also took 5 years to make and was responsible for increasing From Software's profits by over 1100%. And even then, EA's microtransactions technically made more money than Elden Ring did. And they can release a new FIFA or Madden or NHL game every single year, which From Software can't make a game of Elden Ring size that quickly for obvious reasons. So that's what we're dealing with here. While Elden Ring has shook the industry by delivering an amazing experience full of content multiple games over compared to its competition, with no microtransactions may I add, even then, it just barely comes equal to the trash being excreted out by other companies in far less time and of much lower quality. So that begs the question, why would companies push for massive games like Elden Ring or The Witcher these days, when they can generate the same amount of revenue from players with disposable experiences like FIFA? And when you look further into the modern gaming hellscape, it's becoming more and more congested with live services that each have their own nefarious ways of making players open their wallets. Games like RuneScape, for example, have what's called the loyalty program, which, by the way, I had to make a RuneScape account just to capture this footage, so you're welcome, but anyways. Looking through its store, we have many different things we can buy, from packs, cosmetics, and animations. They even have a subscription service which gives you things like loyalty points, artifacts, and discounts. These are all designed to push you to subscribe and start building your various currencies so that they can dig their claws into you forever. Because if you subscribe, you'll get loyalty points and RuneScape coins, and then if you unsubscribe, you'll lose access to those things. But what if a cool item drops that you can't buy because you didn't stay subscribed for long enough? Well, that means you better stay subscribed, otherwise you'll run into something called FOMO. FOMO, or fear of missing out, is a term that kind of perfectly encapsulates what's going on with games these days. So many games have limited time events and cosmetics that push players to engage or buy in the moment, or they will end up having FOMO and missing out on whatever's hot at the time. Fortnite, for example, is a massive predator of this very concept. They have events almost constantly with collabs with brands like Dragon Ball, for example, which saw characters like Goku and Vegeta entering the Battle Royale. And the FOMO for this event likely caused many Dragon Ball fans to pick up Fortnite. Because if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, you gotta prove it, and what better way than spending cash to look like Goku while shooting someone with an AK-47? And then some of these collabs don't even make sense, with DC Comics allowing characters like Batman to join Fortnite. Even though Batman as a character doesn't kill anyone and refuses to use guns. But Warner and DC don't care about that. Let Batman gun down children in the streets of Fortnite if it means people will pay for it. Who cares? Sure, his parents got blasted in front of his eyes, but that doesn't matter. Look how cool Batman looks. Don't you want to buy him? A lot of Fortnite's success comes from how profitable these skins are as well. Fortnite, as of the end of 2022, has roughly 250 million active players every single month. Which is a lot of people, like 250, Jesus. Anyways, Fortnite also has what's called the Gaming Legend Skin Series. These are cosmetics that are based on various icons from the video game industry. Kratos, Master Chief, you get the idea. Anyway, I kind of want to know how much money Fortnite makes from these skins, so I did a little math, which of course is not 100% correct, but I'm going off what I have access to, so bear with me. The Chun-Li skin, according to essentiallysports.com and their data, is one of the most used gaming legend skins in Fortnite, with 0.21% of players having used the Street Fighter character. So, going off of this data, that means roughly 535,804 players have bought the Chun-Li skin. And for the sake of simplicity, I'll be using Canadian dollars as the currency, even though yes, it would be many different kinds of currency. Anyway, that means the single Chun-Li skin, which retailed for 1,600 V-Bucks, which is around $17 Canadian, would mean it made about $9.1 million in sales off this single skin. Which is quite a bit, and I mean, I can't blame Capcom for wanting to monetize Chun-Li's ass sets. It's insane to think that a single skin in Fortnite has made more money than entire games. I mean, the NFL skins that were sold within Fortnite made around $50 million in sales. These three simple skins made more money than entire blockbuster movies or games. That's insane. That's enough money to build homeless shelters, feed starving mouths around the world, or buy multiple copies of the cult classic Nookie on eBay. Of course, I can't sit here and act like I'm not part of the problem, because I definitely am. In Fortnite alone, I've bought a few skins myself. I even bought the entire Destiny catalog of skins because of my unhealthy obsession with that franchise. I even bought the Ash Williams skin from Evil Dead this Halloween because Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. And now I can make Ash dance like an idiot, or have Darth Vader pop out Wolverine claws, or charge his ki like he's from Dragon Ball. Nothing makes sense anymore. And then if we go into Destiny 2 proper, I couldn't even tell you how much I've spent on cosmetics in that game. I've bought countless bundles for my Titan from multiple armor sets, ornaments for specific exotic pieces, or even new looks for the weapons that I use in game. Even after spending all of this money, I like to think it's well spent because I play Destiny 2 so much. In fact, according to my PlayStation annual highlights, Destiny 2 was 22% of my overall gaming for the year. I even played around 2,283 hours worth of games last year, which if you divide that into days, I've spent about 95 days of 2022 just playing video games.
Gentlemen, we are dealing with someone here who has absolutely no life. How do you kill that which has no life?
So I won't sit here naked on my couch and try to act like I'm above anyone else, because I'm not. I've fed into this problem, and I know I am partly to blame for the current way things are going. That being said, I can also admit that games like Destiny 2 have a gorilla grip on my free time. It's getting to the point where I'm behind on other games because of it. Every Tuesday I spent at least 8 hours no-lifing all my weekly stuff in Destiny 2. I am definitely a part of the problem, I admit it.
Let's start by getting some sunlight in here. Okay, we'll start small.
Then again, this monetization of video games has always existed, even if it's in weird and different forms. You ever wonder how it's odd that games like Pokemon, even to this day, only have one save slot? Even though Nintendo could easily add more saves, but they just choose not to? And isn't it crazy but weirdly accepted that the only way to start a new game in Pokemon without losing your stuff is to either transfer all your Pokemon to Pokemon Home, which is an app you have to pay monthly for, or you could buy another copy of the same game and then transfer all your stuff over, or you could have a friend suffer as you trade every Pokemon you want to keep into their game and then get them back later. And yet things like this could easily be remedied by just adding more save slots, but why would Nintendo do that? They know they can limit how user-friendly their games are into making people buy more of the same product. I mean, Pokemon Violet and Scarlet still only have one save slot. It's crazy. Honestly, I'm even surprised Nintendo and Game Freak haven't started selling exclusive skins for Pokemon yet, but I'm sure that'll come one day too. So many things in video games these days are gated behind paywalls or removed entirely to be sold later for monetization, which is annoying. Remember Metal Gear Survive, the awful Konami-made game after Kojima left the company? That game also only has one save slot, even though previous Metal Gear games had many save slots. But don't worry, if you need more, you can just pay $10 for additional save slots. No, I'm not kidding. These sorts of predatory design practices are all over gaming. I remember back when Mass Effect 3 released, EA forced BioWare to make one of the most important squad members into paid DLC at the launch of the game. Javik, for those who've played Mass Effect, know how pivotal his role is to the story and themes of Mass Effect as a whole. And yet his character was only available if you pre-ordered the game or paid around $10. Mind you, this was during the launch of the game. So you already paid full price, and we're now having Javik dangled in front of your eyes for more money. It's sick, and EA got flack for this, and rightfully so. Thankfully, if you play the Legendary Edition, Javik is included, but still the fact he was DLC in the first place was ridiculous. You even have games to this day with versions that allow early access if you pay more. And what's downright predatory about this is that if the game is ready to play, why not just release it then? Well, the answer would be, why would they? When the publisher knows they can squeeze out a few extra dollars from the hardcore fans who can't wait any longer. There's so much predatory monetization in gaming, and it really is bringing down the medium as a whole. Video games are of course still very fun. I'm having a blast replaying The Witcher 3 right now. I'm loving how in-depth everything is, and I forgot how great of a game this was, especially compared to the schlock of today. Of course, it's not all bad since you do have great games still releasing to this day. Games like Chained Echoes, which is a love letter to fans of old school JRPGs that was made by one guy. It's great, and it's definitely worth the asking price. You even have great remasters like Crisis Core, which was some of the most fun I had all year in 2022 playing video games. Sure, it's linear, sure its dialogue's a little cringe and outdated, but at least it's not asking me every 5 minutes to open my wallet in order to keep playing. Then there's games like Evil West, which came out recently too, and I really like that game. Again, it's linear and it's not the longest game, but it was really fun to play. And I didn't feel like anything was gated off by money. It was just a simple, complete action-adventure game, which honestly feels alien these days. But there's so many games these days that are no longer looking at customers as fans, but simply as breathing wallets. Remember MapleStory from earlier in the video? I was looking at that game's different monetization content bundles, and it just started making my head hurt. MapleStory, for example, has loot boxes like Premium Surprise Style Box, Royal Hair and Face Coupons, Luna Crystals, Lucky Jewel Box, Destiny Surprise Style Box, Legendary Familiar Booster Pack, Bright New Year Hat Box, Neo Surprise Style Box, Hotel Maple Party Hat Box, and so many more. I'm tired of reading them, but it's insane how monetized this crap is. The point is that many games and their publishers have created their games into becoming more like storefronts for profit than actual video games first. While feature-complete games still exist, I would advise you to support those kinds of games when you can over the crap that's spilling out these days from every corner. These practices will only become more predatory and lucrative as time goes on, with many younger gamers never knowing a time where video games were not monetized, which makes me sad to think about. For every Elden Ring or Witcher success, there will unfortunately be 5 or 10 FIFAs in their way. Just look at games like Genshin Impact, which is full of monetization and lures players in with its Zelda-like world and waifus. Genshin could have been a solid open-world JRPG, but was instead Frankensteined into a monetizable, endlessly grindy gacha game. And it'll never stop as long as people keep paying for that nonsense. Like I said, I know I'm part of the problem. I too have to start taking my own advice and stop buying every new skin in Destiny for my Titan. But the reality is that monetization and storefronts are so prevalent in games these days that it's sadly becoming the norm as time progresses. At this point, the video game industry is sadly mostly about monetization over innovation, with many companies trying to get their own Fortnites and Genshins up and running. Square Enix, for example, is looking into blockchain and NFTs still, even though people have largely rejected these concepts in recent months. You even have single-player games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla having more gear and items behind paywalls than actually in the game itself. While there is no right or wrong answer here, the truth is that ultimately, we are all to blame. Arcades from the 80s were designed, after all, to be challenging in order to incentivize the use of money to keep playing. We've entered a gameplay loop where things are folding onto themselves, with many games having battle passes and shiny rewards available as long as you can pay up so you don't get diagnosed with FOMO. In the end, this is why video games as a collective medium have largely stagnated and become less innovative. It's not about what players want, but the executives and their desires. But ultimately, the future of games is always within your own hands. By choosing what you buy and support, we can slowly change the trajectory of this industry by simply not engaging with these practices. I miss the days of massive expansions for my favorite games, but the reality is it's far more affordable and lucrative to have 100 developers making skins than having them all work on a single expansion. Because if an expansion fails, the entire studio could go down. But if a cosmetic fails, it's no big deal since it didn't take long to make anyways. While I will try my best to seal my wallet whenever Destiny 2 releases another banger cosmetic, I will say that my recent playtime with Gotham Knights and The Witcher has really opened my eyes to how good we used to have it, and how awful it is these days. To have feature-complete games bursting at the seams with content that respected our time and money. These days, it's more about using the game as a platform for further purchases than telling a story or making you feel something. And that's why I'll stay in my corner with Witcher 3 as I quietly enjoy my time playing something that feels like a relic of today's modern gaming world. And that, my friends, is why video games are just not as fun anymore, and why it's up to you to decide where things go from here. So whether it's on the streets of Gotham City or the war-torn lands of Velen, just remember that the future of this industry has been and always will be within your own hands.